Guys, welcome to the Unshakable Man Self-Confidence Podcast. I'm Chris Wilson, and I'm here with Dave Shepard.
Happy to be here.
You're supposed to say,
Yeah.
"Hey, guys,"
Hey guys, this is Dave
and
Shepard.
yeah, and we're in day 3 of our 5-day emotional mastery audio training. And so each day we've been having a conversation about an in-depth conversation about emotions, emotional awareness, and emotional mastery. And at the end of each conversation, we have a stretch for you, something that you can do to embody that, and what we talked about the day before. And so yesterday, just to review, I'll bring you in a little earlier this time, Dave. Can we go over just briefly, just off the top of your head, what was the stretch that we left with yesterday? I'm actually
Day one
what
was what is emotional aware or is this emotional awareness?
yes, day 1 was, is this emotional awareness? Meaning, and the exercise there is to become aware of your awareness, right? And then yesterday we ended with, what am I feeling? Where do I feel it in my body? And what does it need, or what do I need? And to notice the tendency to look outside of ourselves to get what we need, right? And I had a beautiful opportunity to do this. You already know about it because we were in group today, but got in a nice little spat with my fiance going for a walk on the beach in the morning, some frustration, and I got to drive home in the car, noticing the frustration on and in my body, caring for it. And I didn't actually even think about that was the stretch for today, because this is a part of my practice, and my ability to give that part what it needed and to soothe it and to take care of it is what allowed me to then, when we returned, to come back into connection. And I totally forgot about that today completely, because when this is a neat little tidbit here. One of the reasons why we forget things that feel good, we forget great memories, is because the brain is formed to keep us safe. So we will hold on to things on or in the body, and then that sends a message up to the brain, and we form a memory. And that's why oftentimes we form negative memories about traumatic events, and we hold on to them longer than positive things. And so when you're really doing this work, you'll notice that you just let things go completely and forget about them, because you're so present and in the moment, from moment to moment, living your life. But what about you, Dave? Did you have an opportunity to do the stretch?
Yeah, I mean, I think I shared it in group today, right? Like I was on a walk with my fiance and our newborn,
Mm-hmm.
and Sarah shared, some pretty vulnerable feelings, and her words, not mine. They weren't very logical. They were just emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And as we were talking about it in group today, I thought I had done, the what am I feeling, where am I feeling it, and um, what does it need type thing. And then as we discussed, like it took me a couple hours to actually unwind some, should we call them blockages, or some kind of
Mm-hmm.
some of that scripting, right? That's just
Yeah.
so automatic. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but over a couple of hours, it's kind of fit the pattern of exactly what we're talking about. So
Ah, that's beautiful. That's
our
beautiful. And
fiancés helped us out in the same
they
day.
did.
Yeah,
They
with
are
our
our
homework.
tour. They are our tour mentors.
I
They are
love that.
mentoring us through torment. They're helping us find
Yes.
the places inside that need our care and attention. And that we are going to talk about that in day 4, specifically when we start talking about the 7 principles of spiritual psychology. And I'm not going to get into it right now, but what I want to just put a pin in there is that these individuals, things that we deem important in our life. So your creative practice, your gift to the world, that might be creating a business, that might be creating art, that might be raising a child, that might be creating an amazing relationship with an intimate partner or partners over your lifetime. Um, that all of them, because you've let them in, they are uniquely qualified to help you find the parts of you that need your care and attention the most. And if we don't know that, well, then we project out onto the world, and we expect our partners or our job or our creative gift to the world to make us feel good. And then we get really stuck, right? In that state of maturity, that stage of maturity, meaning we literally do not move past a certain stage of development in our life. So we have a whole group, a whole population of adult age people who are actually not adult age emotional maturity, right? Who are not becoming nurturing, generative adults. And that's the key to this work, to becoming an unshakable man, is doing that. Right.
Mm.
So awesome. Well, shall we begin? I'll jump us in on where we're at for day 3.
Let's do it.
Oh, well, we didn't really review what we went over yesterday, but I do just want to make sure we premise it yesterday. So yesterday we talked about what are emotions, right? We gave it at the definition. Emotions are physical sensations that are happening on or in the body, right? That the mind is subconsciously or consciously aware of, sending a message to the brain. Something important is happening to the body's well-being. We went over the emotional episode timeline, and so all of the stages that it goes through in the body, and how sensation leads to emotion, which leads to behavior, and then a story in our head, or sensation, emotion, feeling, thought, mood, judgment, story, belief system. And that leads to these projections. We're not actually relating with the world as it is. We're experiencing the world through our nervous system, right? And we can repress, suppress, or express or let go of an emotional experience. Right. And so those are that's the main thing that we went over yesterday. So we've been like moving out of the head and into the body. Today, we're getting into the nervous system itself. And so the first, I'm just going to go over these in general. The first top part we're going to go over is the difference between top down and bottom up. Chapter 14. The autonomic nervous system. We're going to do a review of the autonomic nervous system, the 3 parts of the autonomic nervous system, or the 3 branches. And specifically, we're going to get into signs of nervous system dysregulation. Okay. So you can start to tell where you are at in terms of what branch of the nervous system at that time. And in terms of sympathetic, dorsal, and ventral vagal. And I'm throwing out a lot of words here, right? So I do want to make sure that we bring this down to the level of, not for the men who are listening, to like the level of a 5th grader. So we're going to talk about this as each stage, we're going to give it a character. We're going to give it an animal form, so you can remember it. And then really that's it. And we're going to talk about who am I and who are you, so that we can begin to do this work. All right. Ready?
Sounds good. Yeah.
All right. Let's take a deep breath in our nose and then out our mouth, and just so top down versus bottom up. What does that bring up for you?
Well, I think of the top down is just, I would call it the normal way that I think almost everyone goes about their life, right? It's like we're always constantly trying to figure out how to do things. It's about doing things right, doing things perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But most of what we do is very heady. And then the bottom up is,
And why
um,
would we do that? Why would we want to do things right or to do things perfect?
comes back to the man box in a big way. But I think it's
Okay.
just, I
What
think it's our
connection to
our
the man
culture
box?
is,
Okay.
I think our culture is, it's how we're taught as kids, right? It's like we're rewarded for doing well on quizzes and tests, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we got grades and
Mm-hmm.
report cards and all that stuff.
Yeah. What I'm looking for in there is to survive, to
Mm.
fit in. It really is about survival. It's not about thriving. It's about fitting in, staying safe, not being a part of the pack. If you step out of the pack, yeah, we talk about it being a positive thing in the uh, in the blogosphere, right, in our culture, we deitize people who do that at a young age, put them on a stage, but it's also uh, the number one fear, right, of human beings, public speaking, being seen, right? And because that's vulnerable, it puts us in the possibility of risk, trauma, being traumatized, right? And that's one of the main things we share in group all the time, right? Is that like at the moment that you have the opportunity to check in, you are risking trauma to open and to share, give a voice to a place inside. And and there are parts of us, protective parts of us that have formed to keep us safe, to manage our existence. And we're going to talk about that in day 4, day 5. But that survival process, right? It is adaptive to think about our environment, to project, to mentally label and define what we are seeing in our life, just as an infant does, right? Like you have an infant in your house right now that's just learning about everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's non-conscious. It's just absorbing all of this information. And that is top, most of that is top down as well as bottom up. It's all happening at the same time. But as we become into maturity as young adults, and we enter into socialization, and we start to move into different stages of development, we start to let go of all of those intuitive, sensual, vibrant, bottom up skills that come from the bottom, from the body up to the brain. And I do want to say that there really are people out there who live their life from the bottom up, but they have a very, very challenging time existing in our society without some form of distance, right? Or some skill set in order to maintain those abilities. And so what we're doing here in our community, or what I see us doing in the Unshakable Man, is going in the reverse. We are learning, the majority of the men are learning to go from top down to bottom up, and awakening to find these intuitive gifts, these other skills, and becoming nurturing, generative, whole human beings, and integrating that skill set, right? And so there's a unique paradox here. I call it the hard way versus the open way. They're both challenging, right? The hard way leads to disconnection and separateness. The open way leads to connection and wholeness. But the more if you think about it, the more open you are, the more you learn to open. In order to stay open, what do you need?
I don't know. Answer your question for me. Go for it.
Skills,
Skills. All right.
right? Because otherwise we close back up, right? And we to protect ourselves. But if you are going to remain open, in order to remain open, or to open up more and to become more authentic and to bring your whole self out into the world, you require certain skills, right, in order to do that. And so that's the generative quality of choosing the open way, is that by choosing that challenge of opening, you automatically are calling into your life that you're going to have to acquire these skill sets to remain open. And that's what is the generative part of the hard way versus the open way. And what I want to connect that to right now is the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, the adaptive process that our nervous system has has uh, developed to keep us safe. Okay, so in the nervous system, we're going to get into the 3 parts of the nervous system, but I want you to think about it like this: that the nervous system is nervous, and it is constantly scanning for for safety, for connection, or threat or connection. And it looks for threat first, because it could, if it thought everything was a possibility to connect, what would happen?
You get eaten by a tiger.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
and you can't be in a state of connection and protection at the same time. But we can emotionally or spiritually bypass it. Meaning that's why when we are giving consent, you might you if you and I were in a relationship and I was giving consent to you, or you were giving consent to somebody else, or they were giving consent to you, it's very possible that someone fawns, right, and allows something to happen when they don't feel like they want it to, and they don't know that until later, right? But the body knows. The body knows. And so oftentimes we don't know until we've been taught, especially men who have been taught to disconnect from their bodies in order to socialize or to fit into that box, right? So the first part is top down versus bottom up. And there's this one nerve that sends signals, this giant that it's called the wandering nerve or the vagus nerve, and it wraps from your big toes around your calves, behind your knees, inside your groin, around your intestines, your lower soft belly, up behind your lungs, behind your heart, around your heart, up around your shoulder blades, behind your ears, and around your ears to your face, and it wraps around your eyes and your nose and your lips and the soft palate. That nerve is called the vagus nerve. And that nerve has nerve endings that has two major pathways. One sends signals from the brain down, and one sends signals from the bottom up, from the belly or the body up to the brain. And those fibers are efferent and afferent pathways. And so top down is efferent, and only 20% of the information goes from the brain down to the body. We can measure that. 80% of the information goes from the body up to the brain. And the adaptive reason for this is survival. The body is a scanning machine. It's constantly searching the environment, scanning the environment through exteroception and interoception into the body and out of the body, scanning the environment like a radar system, looking for threat or protection. Threat or protection. Going through a lot here.
Is how important is it to understand the difference between efferent and afferent, or do you just need to know the directions? One's
I
going
think
down, one's going up.
the key is to just recognize that top down versus bottom up, and to
Yeah.
recognize that 80% of the information is coming from the body up to the brain, and that only 20% of the information goes from the brain down to the body. And so this is where the story in the head follows the state of the body. Okay. So the key here that I want men to recognize in here is that the nervous system is nervous. It's constantly scanning the world around us. And we don't actually experience the world. We experience our nervous system in the world, through the world. We experience the world through the lens of our nervous system. And what did we say before? There's no good or bad emotions. But if the nervous system is saying, hey, I need to be afraid, constantly vigilant all of the time, then what state am I in all of the time?
Yeah. Anxiety, anxious, something, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about what those are. Okay. Because the anxiety, nervous all of the time relates to one of the three branches of the nervous system. Okay. So there's three branches. There's the sympathetic, the dorsal, and the ventral vagal. The dorsal, the sympathetic is the fox. It's the get up and go part of our system. Okay. It's adaptive and constructive because we need to happen to our life, right? Like we have to get up and go out into the world. But if we're getting up and going all of the time, what happens?
You burn out, right? You get tired.
You burn out, you get tired. The dorsal system is there, the turtle, to down regulate us when we get too high into the sympathetic state. So it down regulates us into the freeze or the off or the immobilization state. But what happens if we stay there for too long?
We're a couch potato or we get eaten by a tiger.
Yeah, we wither away.
Yeah.
We actually need elasticity in the system in order to grow. Too much fox and we die, we have a heart attack, we burn out. Too much dorsal and we actually don't have enough stress to adapt. We actually can't grow. And so these systems are adaptive. They're constantly up regulating and down regulating, up regulating and down regulating. And then we have the final piece, which is the ventral vagal or the human. And this is important. This is when you are actually a human. The other two, you are an animal. You're not. The ventral vagal state is the state of human connection. It's rest, it's socialization, it's engagement, it's safety, it's your authentic self. It's where creativity happens. It's where resting and digesting happens. It's where you digest food. It's where you heal and grow. It's where your creative thinking can come into play. It's where you can have intimacy and you can start to care for yourself and the world around you. But if you're in the dorsal, you're disconnected. And if you're in the fox, the sympathetic, you're get up and go. You're actually shutting down that ventral vagal state. Okay. We're literally just brisking over these. Okay. We could do an entire course on just this and we will. But what I want you to recognize is that we form. How often in your life are you in the fox state?
Yeah, most of the time, right? Reacting to something.
Right. And we have what? Social media. We have
Exactly.
phones. We have we're thinking about the future, or we're worried about the past, or we're worried about the past, or worried about the future and thinking about the past, and that's both anxiety, putting us into that stress response. So, for many men, from an emotional mastery perspective, we are literally learning how to take care of our nervous system, how to recognize that we can feel safe. We're learning how to do that, honor in our bodies. And many humans never, ever learn this. They are constantly in a state of fight or flight or dorsal shutdown, or they're numbing out, or they're disconnected. And it's not a judgment, it's all in a process to feel something, to feel safe, right? To feel connected. And so self leadership is about self regulating. It's about learning to take responsibility for our nervous systems and learning to be that primary caretaker, to self regulate. And so to start to recognize when am I in this protective state, and then to give myself what I need so I can start to down regulate and to come into that ventral vagal human state and to bring that into what I'm doing. And that's actually the skill, that's the challenge of our lifetime, right? Is to be able to go from being an immature person, that is man who is at the whims of his emotions, right? Like how many guys out there like on the internet are talking about stoicism, right? And like perform better by block like cutting out your emotions, right? And they have this rigid way of doing it, this like reactive way of doing it, right?
Yeah.
But what does that get you?
I mean, just more of the same. It's just perpetuating that. I mean, that is the way we're taught, right?
That is the way we're taught.
Don't you? I mean, I think so, right? Like you think of like the Marlboro Man or um what was John Wayne, right? Like in all the westerns, like
Mhm.
there was no emotion, right? Like that's like those are like the epitome
Mhm.
of manliness, of manhood.
Yeah. So what's important to me here is that we're painting this picture of that to be human is to be emotional, to be able to connect to the environment, to our important others, to feel what it feels like on and in our body to do something amazing or to find our inner creativity, right? And to put our attention on something that matters to us, not just for ourselves, but for the good of others, right? And that whole process is emotional, right? So if our relationship with it is that we somehow disconnect from the emotional experience, we're putting ourselves into a non-human state. It's an immature reactive response to something that is dynamic. Okay. And the nervous system, to just review, is nervous, right? And when we come into a men's group, if you're in the group, what do we do in the beginning of the group?
We ground,
We ground,
check in. Yeah.
check in. Yeah.
Three by
And
three.
so, yeah. So when we come into the group, we're doing our arrival practice, we ground, and then we check in. And that is taking us out of our fight or flight response, out of our dorsal response, if some of us are in that. And it's bringing us into our ventral vagal state of social connection and engagement. And this process is called co-regulation, right? Our nervous systems adapted with other nervous systems. So when I do a check-in with you, why don't we do one right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. So let's do our check-in right now. If you want to go first, you can go, or I'll go. And
You want to do the three by three?
yeah, and let's invite the men who are listening to do it with us after
Yeah.
last. And so to pause and to do it after you and I do it. Okay. So I'll go, then you go, and
Yeah.
then we'll give them a chance to go. We'll ask them to pause the podcast and to just do it and to listen. Now, for the men who are listening, I'm going to do what's called a 3x3 check-in. As a Unshakable Man 3x3 check-in. And so I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to give David a chance to go. He's going to do it. And then we're going to give you a chance to go. All right. And first, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. Then I'm going to do it. While I'm doing this, I invite David and I invite you, the listener, to start to inhale in your nose and out your mouth. In your nose and out your mouth. And if I notice something in my environment, or if I say something that inspires you to notice something or to not notice something or to notice the lack of something in your environment, I want you to just let that happen. And that this is called as a process of attunement. So my nervous system, I'm going to use a tool to get out of my head and into my body. I'm going to down regulate, and then David's going to do it, and then you're going to be able to do it. And I want you to know, even if you're listening to this on a podcast, sitting in your car, please don't do this while you're driving. But if you're in your car and you're over the internet, it still works, which is wild because it's been proven that the human voice, this is how our recorded meditations work through a recording, has the same response in your earballs, like in your ears, hearing me and David breathe, and can help you down regulate your nervous system. Okay, so here I go. First, I'm going to say, my name is Chris and I'm checking in. I'm going to take a deep breath in my nose, out my mouth. Then I'm going to bring my energy and awareness out into the space around me. I'm going to label 3 things I notice in the environment around me. I'm going to describe them to you in a dry yet descriptive way. Okay. And that language is important. And take another deep breath in my nose, out my mouth. I'm going to bring my awareness into my body. I'm going to notice 3 things on or in my body. I'm going to describe those to you in a dry yet descriptive way. Again, that language type is important. I'm going to take another deep breath in my nose, out my mouth. And I'm going to scan my emotional state. I'm going to say 3 ways I'm feeling emotionally. Again, dry yet descriptive language. And you don't have to be right. Just be creative. Okay. And then I'll say, my name is Chris and I'm checking in for a second time. And then David, I just ask that you acknowledge that you heard me. Okay. Out loud. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Because I didn't hear you that time.
Yeah. You're good to go,
Awesome.
bud.
Awesome. Cool, cool, cool. All right. So the reason for the dry yet descriptive language, I'm going to add this one in, is because language is the primary tool that we use to relate to our experience in our bodies, in our heads, and out loud to other people. When we do that, it's called formative language. And formative language comes in four types. There's amplification, suppression, judgment, and story. So I am constantly amplifying my experience, suppressing my experience, judging my experience, and telling stories about my experience. When you become aware of that, your power grows and your ability to attune and to get into the present comes in. We're not going to give and receive adjustments here, but I wanted to share that with you because that's like the advanced level of this. Okay, so here I go. I'm Chris and I'm checking in. I notice two flip-flops on the floor. I notice a blinking light on my laptop and my story in my head about that light. And I notice the yawn that Dave just did. Physically honoring my body. I notice my heart beating in my chest and in the palms of my hands. I notice wetness around the corners of my lips and a soft inhale in my nose, and my eyelids, my eye muscles softened. Emotionally, I feel caring and friendly and vibrant. I'm Chris and I'm checking in.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, David.
I'm Dave checking in. I see a pen on my desk. Got sunglasses and my glass of water. On or in my body, I feel my thumbs pressing together. Uh, my left ankle is on my right ankle, and I can feel my back against the chair. Emotionally, I'm feeling curious, connected, and excited. I'm Dave checking in.
Good to be with you, Dave. Nice
Yeah,
work.
thanks.
And now you, the listener, if you want to pause it, you can do that 3x3 check-in for yourself and then unpause it and come back into the space and just check in on what that's like for you. I'll count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So what was that like for you now? Where are you at, Dave?
I think I'm much more present than I was before.
Yeah.
Um, it always has a grounding effect on me, just to, and no matter how
Yeah.
many times I do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I notice that I feel bashful and judgmental. Like there's a story in my head that I get excited when I talk about this stuff and getting to do this with you. And there's always this, I also feel protective of that. Like I've learned that it's part of the creative process to be able to do both, right? To do the practice and talking about it. But it just always seems like there's this duality between um, intellectual concepts and the embodied practice. And I love the embodied practice. I'm not sure if I love it more. It's like a child. It's like having two
Hmm.
kids.
Hmm.
Right. I think I know which one I love the most. It's the embodied
You
practice.
love to practice. You love to practice.
Can I share why?
Go for it. Yeah.
It's because of our thing we said in the warning on the very first day, emotional and spiritual bypassing. Because you can read about this stuff, you can learn about this stuff, but not embody it.
Mm.
And the body is the place. My environment is always here to wake me up, right? Like the trash has to get taken out, the bills have to get paid. Oh, my light just went out. I think we just lost power.
Oh
That's
no.
wild. I think we just lost power. I need to go plug my emergency battery, make sure it's plugged in. I actually have one on the wall, so I'm gonna go click
Okay.
the button.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. I think we just lost power in this circuit somehow. That's wild.
Mm. I wanted to share a story when
Yeah.
whenever you say this emotional or spiritual bypass, uh, and you talk about like reading books, it always reminds me of um, this teacher I had, and he called it dirt time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was like a Native American survival school, and you would go to one of these like week long classes, and you would fill like sometimes two or three notebooks with all the notes from the whole thing. And every single time he'd start every class and finish it the same way, which was basically everything that we've gone over this week is useless if you don't go and practice the skills. And he called that dirt time. He's like, you got to actually get dirty, right? You can't just
Yeah.
take notes and then pretend like you know what you're
Yes.
doing. You have to actually go and do it. It's the same thing, right?
Yes. Ah,
Yeah. I think dirt time is such a great phrase.
dirt.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you. Dude, this is why you're here right now. This is I just feel so inspired from a creative, collaborative place as one of the men in the men that I practice with, right? Like we practice together, we're in group together,
Mm.
right? And we're but you also live in Australia and I'm here in San Francisco, right? So we're not in each other's direct worlds. Um, but it's that appreciation of like the intellectual understanding, but then the embodied practice that and like really appreciating that is so important. And that's exactly why we're making this, right? Is a man can feel like, oh wow, like this is a lot of information. Okay. These guys are talking about a lot of these concepts. It's interesting. I might feel overwhelmed, but I feel inspired to want to practice. Right.
Yeah. I don't think there's a good way to do this. Like, I don't think like not there's not a perfect way, right? It's like you can go
Mm-hmm.
and learn all of the intellectual stuff before you go and do the practice, or you can do what happened to me, which was like you did all the practice and then learned the intellectual stuff later. And I I think you there's there's
One
merit
of
to
my
both sides, but doing the practice I think is far more important than the
mm,
intellectual stuff.
one
And
of my
often the intellectual stuff gets in the way. I think that's
uh
the other thing. Like I'm very grateful for having learned that sometimes you learn a lot more without someone putting words to everything you're learning.
80% bottom up.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great call right there. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
One of my teachers, she said, uh, Shannon was her name. She said, and on, she's been on the podcast in the past. I can't believe I'm forgetting her last name right now. She, a very special teacher who shared her meditation practice with me. And she actually taught me, wow, actually, she taught me what we're going to talk about for chapter 16. That's wild.
Great segue.
Can't believe that came up from that. That's wild. We were just talking about holy cow, what a wild connection. She she was the one that taught me uh what were you saying right before this about dirt time?
Oh, like in terms of like what's the best way to learn it? Like kind of the top down intellectual stuff, or learning it through experience, right? And that you sometimes it's really good to learn it through experience because it's not everything can be conveyed through
Mm-hmm.
words that you're learning.
Yeah.
Like
So
you and I've been talking about experiments a lot recently, right?
yeah,
This
yeah.
idea of like doing experiments and seeing what you learn,
Oh,
and like
this
that's the key,
I
right?
got it. I got
Yeah.
it. I got it. I got it. She taught me two things. The sixth chapter, two major things. Chapter 16 is the one of the things, but the other thing she taught me was she wrote she in her dharma, her practice, part of her dharma that she discovered was that her place was to help a uh one of the lamas to translate her teachings for the world. And so she had spent 10 years editing these these books, these talks that had been given. And she was doing the editing, the physical writing component of it. And she became a master of it. And this wasn't her job. She was an engineer, a developer, a website developer by trade, but she also loved language. And she said, I could write these and do that. But what I discovered so much that she became so attracted to was that she could spend time writing it, but she could not complete it or even get close to completion of a paragraph or a section without engaging in the practice with a student of the teacher in order to relate what was on the page to the direct experience of the transmission of being with another human being. And it didn't need to be the teacher, it had to be them, human beings relating to the teaching, because that was the flower blooming was the relationship with the teaching from moment to
Mm,
moment. And she said that there's always three stages when you're teaching. There's the view, the practice, and then reviewing and engaging on the result. The view, the practice, and then your relationship with the result, and doing all three together. And today, these audio teachings to me are the view. We're setting the view. And then we give guys a practice, right? Yesterday, it creatively came out. It's like, what am I feeling? Where I feel in my body? What do I need? You relate to the practice. The day before that, it was, is this emotional awareness? Okay, I'm aware of my awareness. Today, it's go do a 3x3 check in.
mm,
And we didn't even make this up. It's just coming out organically while we're doing this, right? Because it's
mm.
creative. It's beautiful, right? It's just so cool. I'm smiling on my face. So, shall we
Are we on?
complete?
Are we on to chapter 16 yet? I think
We
everyone
are.
just
We
wants
are.
to
We
know the
are.
next thing that she
All
taught
right.
you.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay. So the final piece here. Okay. So we've talked about. We started this off yesterday. We went over the emotional episode timeline, right? We learned what
Yeah.
an emotion is, right? Emotion is a physical sensation happening in the body. First day, we talked about awareness of your awareness, right? And now we're talking about the nervous system, and the nervous system is nervous. It's looking for threat or protection or connection, threat or connection. And it's in a fight or flight, or it's in a dorsal state, or you're in a ventral vagal state of connection in the nervous system. And you're actually, that's the human in you. That's coming into your true self energy when you're in that ventral vagal state. But many of us don't, our nervous systems have not been nurtured around other nervous systems, right? To learn how to down regulate. And that's why practicing somatic meditation and breath work and yoga and being in a men's group or going to a men's retreat, that's why we practice together. That's why the Unshakable Man community exists. So the last piece here for tonight is Who are you?
Just before you get into that, Chris, I just want to say this is if people were really paying attention, this is all around us all the time. Like we do things in groups. Like there are certain things that we only do in groups. You can go to like AA meetings, right? They have
Mhm.
their own 12-step process, but
Yep.
there's no such thing as an AA meeting with one person.
Well,
It
you
does
can read
like
the
that
book,
doesn't,
right? You can read the book
yeah,
and you
right.
can do it one on one with your partner, like your
Absolutely.
sponsor.
Yeah.
But you're right. You're right. They're gateways into the group sangha, right?
100%.
Yeah.
We don't go to church by ourselves. There's
Right.
like there
We
are a
don't
whole bunch of things
party
in our
by
life.
ourselves. Go to
Exactly.
Burning Man.
Yeah, like there's you don't go to a sporting event and just be the only person in the stands. It actually feels really weird. Like when you do
Yeah.
that, like it's like awkward to be by
Hmm.
yourself at a sporting event. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's like it's all related.
Yeah. So who are you? Who am I?
Hmm. Oh, we're gonna get really deep and philosophical about this.
Not philosophical. We're just gonna go straight to it. So we need to talk about this in order to go deeper. In order to get into emotional mastery, we can't just stop with the nervous system. We can't just stop with awareness. We actually have to ask, who are you? And this is what she had to do with me. She said, "Hey, Chris, who are you?" And I'm like, "Well, I I don't know. I'm Chris Wilson. I'm a 31-year-old dude living in San Francisco, just had a massive anxiety attack. Like, I don't know. What do you mean? Who the fuck am I? I'm That's who I am. No, 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 no. I am not the so now to find out who we are, let's talk about what we aren't.
Mm,
So I'm not my body, right? Like
yeah.
I'm my body isn't me. Like I'm not my thoughts. I have thoughts all the time. Those aren't me. Right? I'm not my creations. A lot of people think they are. We deitize creators, but I'm not my creations. It's challenging to say this, but I'm not even really my actions, even though I embody myself through my actions in my life or through my thoughts or through what I say or my emotions. I'm not emotions.
Mm.
So what am I? Like I'm not the sensations in my body. I'm experiencing the sensations on or in my body. I'm not a past event or the shame related to what I did. So who am I? Right? So what we get to is I am that which is experiencing. I am that which is experiencing. There's this idea that we project out onto the world that somehow, and this is only by people who haven't looked, right? If you practice, you find that you never actually find out who you are. You're always becoming into something. You are constantly moving through and into what is next. I am not, I like this concept of the self, right? I am that which is experiencing. I am, in other words, loving awareness. I am love. I am the awareness that is placed on or through these things. The reason that this is important and helpful in our practice is to start to recognize that when I am working with a challenge or with a trigger or with a test or when something is happening on or in my body in my practice, I can start to work with it because I'm taking what's called the great step backward to be able to learn to experience what is happening in my experience because I am that which is experiencing. Is that connecting with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to speak to whoever might be listening. If I had gone back exactly a year ago in my own life, I think I would have been very put off by this last 2 or 3 minutes we've been talking, right? Really, you've been talking. And this would have sounded like woo woo
Sorry.
stuff. No, it's just I was uncomfortable with this sort of thing. I didn't have any,
And
I
yet
couldn't
you'd had
relate to
how
it.
many 10-day meditations had you done at that point? Two?
Zero. I'm going in like a week. So this has been a year ago right now. I'm going to my first 10-day meditation in like a week, right?
When we had
Something
that
like that.
conversation, you were on your way in.
No, it was just after. It was like I had gone and then flew to San Francisco and then we met up. So
Okay.
I was
Okay.
probably 2 or 3 weeks out of it. Yeah, something like
Okay.
that.
Okay. Okay.
And what I want to say to the listeners is um my experience over the last year is that everything you're saying now makes a lot of sense to me. Right. And so I want to give anyone who might have felt like the way I felt a year ago, like hang in there, right? Like just keep going, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
I just had a really beautiful experience a few months ago where someone challenged me to ask myself 10 times every day, like what part of me has never changed,
Mm.
and this was an experiment to
Hmm.
point towards all the things you've just said, right? Like that we are unconditional love, right? Like if you had said that to me a year ago, I would have no idea what the hell that meant. Like I understand what unconditional means, I know what love is, but like those two words together and how that relates to me, I don't get it, right?
Yeah. Want to blow our mind on another one?
Yeah, go for it.
Love is not an emotion. Love is the
You said
ability
that
to
you
be.
said that to me recently, and
Love
I
is
don't
the
understand what you're
ability
talking
to
about.
love is the
Yeah,
ability to be with any and all emotions, because I am that which is experiencing. I am love. If I reject and push away an emotional experience, right? I can't heal. I can't allow it pass through me. But when I put my awareness with the experience happening on or in the body, my experience of it changes and it
yeah,
opens,
that's so
right?
good.
Oh, it's
When you said that,
beautiful,
when you
right?
said love is not emotion, I literally didn't know by that. But
It's not.
I from that description, I can get to unconditional love,
Yeah.
right? That we are
Yeah.
the experiencer, and that is unconditional love. We're not
Yeah.
trying to
Love is
change
not
what's in front of us.
desire. Love is not desire. Love is not getting our needs met. And love is not attraction. Desire is the choice to be unhappy until we get what we want. Attraction comes from our nurturing, it comes from how we are nurtured. It doesn't mean that it was good for us. It means it's what's normal or what is normative for our nervous system, which is not always healthy for us, right? And desire, needs, and attraction, and then needs. It's not always getting our needs met, right?
Mm,
Love is connection to what is, the ability to be with. It's a choice. It's an action. It's an opening to what is, right? And this brings us into, let's jump into I am
oh,
that,
this
right? So
this gets me so jazzed up. This is so good.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful, man. It's very special to get to share this together. So we're at this turning point, right? Like we're 4 days, we're 3 days in, we're at like the hump. And I love that happens this way, because it's like we're moving from we're moving from the entry in, right, where we talked about, um we became aware of our awareness, we and then like we're talking about emotional episode timelines, right? And like there are no good or bad emotions, then we're into the body. But now that we're coming into the body and we're talking about the nervous system is nervous and there's these different states, right? And now we need to talk about who am I, in order to go from looking top down into a bottom up practice,
Mhm.
right? In order to bring my awareness into my body, we have to start recognizing that and asking this question to just have a tool to be able to do this work to go further. And that's where this comes from. Okay. So this whole who am I thing, you've heard me talk about a part of me, right? And you said a part of you a few times in here.
Mm.
I want you to recognize, and anyone who's listening, that to recognize that we intuitively use this language without being aware of what we're saying about our own internal practice. And so the next concept that I want you to understand around who am I is there's really three pieces. So the first one is I am that which is experiencing, and we get there by looking at what we are not, right? And then the other one is the myth of monolithic personality versus the multiplicity of self concept. So we, and we're going to end here in a couple of minutes, but what this is I say I am Chris and I am checking in, or you're, hey Dave Shepard, nice to meet you. You are
Mm.
Dave, right? So we roll up this myth of monolithic personality into a self concept, and we hold on to that self concept in order to fit in to the world, to feel safe, right? Because if I was walking around constantly as I am that which is experiencing, it's hard to bring my sense of self or my sense of stuff out into the world, right?
Mm.
So this is called the myth of monolithic personality versus the multiplicity of self concept. And so what
When I
actually
quit my job, this got thrown right in my face.
tell me how.
Well, how do you answer the question? How what do you do, or who are you? It's
Yeah,
literally without like I didn't have a job, so it was literally impossible,
right.
right? And I didn't have a next thing that I was jumping right into right away. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had like what I'm going to say, I'm on sabbatical. That worked out okay,
Yeah.
right? My friends
Because you
teased me that I
are
was
how what you
retired, right?
identify as what you do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah. And this was for me the same thing when I lost my job as a software sales guy because of an anxiety attack. Who am I if I'm not that? Right.
Mm.
It's adaptive. It's what happens for us. And especially for men because of our culture. But what I want to guide us toward is that this is also a pathway to our greatest gifts and our ability to really bring our full self out into the world. It's the ability to realize that I am actually a multiplicity of selves. And this opens us up into, we have managerial parts, and this is IFS theory or framework, where internal family systems. And this is in three pieces. We're not going to get into the whole thing right now, but we have managerial parts of ourselves that help us fit in. They manage our existence. And that is how we identify in the world when we're in there. And then we have exiled parts of ourselves that have gotten pushed back deeper only because they didn't really fit in, or they were directly or indirectly pushed away by our culture. That might be a more vibrant or expressive part of myself. And then we have firefighters or saboteurs, these parts of us that turn on when a managerial part is dysregulated or attacked. And this all corresponds with the nervous system, different states of our nervous system. And this is why when we're in a men's group, we can start to engage in different ways because we're in this brave space where we can start to see ourselves in a different way because we have nothing to do there other than to simply be. And we get so few opportunities in our life to sit in circle with a group of other nervous systems and just with the pure intention of simply being, to see ourselves in a new way. Okay. And the last principle I'll bring in here for the sense of self is another one, is a fun one. It's called the mirror principle. It's I am who I think I am,
Mm.
and you are who you think I think you are. I am who I think my mom thinks I am. I am who I think my society thinks I am. But this is all a way of noticing the projection of how I'm holding, of how I think people think I am. And I have agency in that, right? I have will. I have the ability to change or to put my energy and awareness in a certain place and to change how I think you think I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Awesome. Awesome. So let's end here, and we're gonna have our stretch today, right? Is gonna be to do a 3x3 check-in with yourself. And right. So that's to take a pause, do it once, twice, maybe three times in a day, and just I am blank and I am checking in. Deep breath. Notice three things in the environment. dry yet descriptive way. Deep breath in your nose. Notice 3 things on or in your body. And then deep breath. Notice 3 ways you feel emotionally. And then say your name and you're checking in. And just go through that projection from the that protocol from the outside in, and notice the direction that we're going. Okay. Feeling good to complete here?
Yeah, man, this is a good one.
Yeah, we talked about a lot today. Oh man. I do just want to speak to the men who are listening to this. I I would love to hear from you. Um, and I'm sure Dave would love to hear from you as well. So if you've gotten this far and you've listened along and you've followed along, please in the community, go in and send us a message. Let us know what your response, constructive or destructive, good or bad, whatever this experience has been like for you up until this point. Please let us know what your experience has been like. It really will help us in our practice as we bring this work out into the world. And if you haven't already, please go sign up for the Unshakable Man 5-day self-confidence course and community bundle. All of the courses that we have created that are in the Unshakable Man community, all the 5-day courses and the 90-day, our weekly community men's group and our weekly community breathwork session, all of those practices are specifically designed in order to give you protocols to do the practices that Dave was talking about when he was saying, if I just read the book, I wouldn't get dirt time,
Mm.
right? Like I got to get dirt time. And the only reason we're talking about this is to inspire you to do that. And that's the only reason I'm staying up until 9:14 p.m. last call of the day to be hanging out with this dude in Australia. Thank you so much, Dave. It's been a pleasure being with you,
Pleasure,
man.
as always, Chris.
Good
Sleep
night.
tight.
Bye. I'm gonna eat another thing of pasta.
Nice.
Bye, dude.
Take care.